Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is Daily Drop number 265. Surviving Jeffrey Epstein premiered on Lifetime tonight, and I have to say, I thought the first episode was pretty well done. Anytime that we can hear from the survivors, anytime that their voice can be amplified and their stories can be told in a manner that they see fit, I think that it's a good thing. Too many people have no idea the true depths and the scope of what occurred here. For us who have been following the case, obviously, things like this, shows like this and the one from Netflix, they really don't provide those bombshell moments for us, right? But it does put things in perspective. And when you hear the stories from the girls themselves, it is very powerful. It's a very powerful form of media, and it spurs people into action, and it makes people want to get involved and help in whatever way that they possibly can. And we saw that after the Netflix series as well. We saw the interest. And back then I said that series would be an entry point for people to get their feet wet with the case. And this is another situation like that. But I think that it's going to be a little more interesting from the perspective of that it's almost happening in real time, right? Ghislaine Maxwell getting arrested while they're doing the filming, etc., etc. The timing matched up perfectly for them. So I think that if you're looking for bombshell information, obviously I don't think this is where you're going to find it. But I think that it's another great jump-off point for people who are not completely addicted to this case or immersed in this case, because there's a lot, right? If you were coming into this case cold right now, where the hell would you even start? So I think a series like this, a 4-part series like this, gives people a chance to kind of get their head kind of wrapped around about the details of what occurred and some of the players that were involved. And the chart that they put up showing the core four and Jean-Luc Brunel, I thought that was pretty good. I liked how they focused a little bit on Sarah Kellen Vickers and how they focused on how the whole entire scheme was being run, basically, as far as the girls and the pyramid scheme. I thought that was a really nice presentation and a good way to explain it to the unsullied. So we'll get more into the Surviving Jeffrey Epstein series after tomorrow night when I see the next 2 parts, and we'll talk a little bit more about it then. But if you haven't watched the first 2 parts, I suggest that you check them out. It's always a good thing to hear from the survivors and hear what they have to say. So I highly suggest checking it out. I can't get enough information. I always feel like maybe there'll be something that they try to slip by me, and if I miss it, then I'll be behind the 8 ball. So I try to watch all of these shows and documentaries, as many of them as possible anyway. But I didn't see anything, brand new here tonight. Nothing that was earth-shattering. But we did get a couple of juicy tidbits. Gypsy Gita, that was something we learned last night. And, a couple of other interesting things. But for the most part, what it does, it shines a light on the co-conspirators that were working with Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein as far as the core four go. And that's a lot of progress, because in the Netflix series, we didn't see enough of that, in my opinion. So check it out if you haven't already. It's on Lifetime Network. I'm sure that it'll be on demand, or they'll replay it before tomorrow's episode as well. I'm sure they'll replay the 2 hours from today, but make sure you check it out if you haven't done so yet. Now, on to our article for tonight. Tonight we have an article from WGBH. They're part of the NPR network in Boston, in Massachusetts. And Alan Dershowitz, Mr. I Kept My Underpants On, was on one of their shows called Beat the Press and doing an interview about the Epstein case and the allegations that are leveled at him. So this article is from WGBH.org. The headline, Alan Dershowitz says media is withholding exonerating information. The author of this article is Emily Rooney. That headline cracks me up. So, according to Mr. I Kept My Underpants On, the media is withholding exonerating information, but I thought you didn't do anything. Why do you need to be exonerated? This guy's having an absolute meltdown right before our eyes. Frazzled, shook, and lashing out every which way he can. In a passionate interview with Beat the Press, Harvard Law School professor Alan Dershowitz claims certain journalists are intentionally withholding documents, interviews, and tape-recorded conversations that would corroborate his denials of sexual misconduct against Jeffrey Epstein survivors. So, he wants everyone to believe that this is all a big, gigantic conspiracy theory to take him down. The nudist volleyball player of Martha's Vineyard, gonna be taken down by all of the media who's sitting on troves of documents that would exonerate him from any of the charges. Meanwhile, he's provided zero evidence to back up claims like that. He runs around making those sorts of claims, talking about suing everybody, talking about how this one's lying or that one's lying, and meanwhile, we have not seen one bit of tangible evidence to back up Mr. Underpants on, no matter the situation, stories. It's becoming a joke at this point that this guy thinks people are going to buy his nonsense. In the Netflix documentary Filthy Rich, one of those accusers, Virginia Roberts, claimed she had sex with Dershowitz at least 6 times and recently said the first encounter was in New York City when she was only 16 years old. So, think about that for a minute, okay? 16 years old. The oh-so-great and the oh-so-honorable Alan Dershowitz is being accused by Virginia of abusing her at least 6 times, starting when she was 16. And this dude's talking about the media has evidence that will exonerate me? What sort of evidence could the media possibly have that would exonerate you? Dershowitz provided Epstein, who died by suicide while in custody last August, was accused of sexually preying on dozens of vulnerable teenage girls and forcing some of them to have sex with prominent friends and associates. And remember, okay, it's not just Virginia who has accused Alan Dershowitz of assaulting them and having sex with them via Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking ring. Also, Sarah Ransom made those claims as well. So now we have 2 girls credibly accusing Alan Dershowitz of partaking in Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking ring, and this guy is raging out saying the media has documents that will exonerate him. Well, here's an idea, and I know that it's going to be foreign to people like you, Mr. Dershowitz, but how about the truth? You ever think about just providing the truth for once? Dirty Dershowitz provided Epstein with legal counsel when, in 2008, he pleaded guilty to charges in Florida of procuring a minor for prostitution and solicitation. Again, I know I say this every time, but a minor cannot be a prostitute. A minor cannot consent to be a prostitute. So the whole, it was solicitation and he was just procuring a minor for prostitution, no big deal. Like, that's not a big deal. Like, that's not something that should be enough to get him exiled from so-called polite society. It's just such a stain on the system when they actually had a law in the books that called minors prostitutes. Thankfully, that law's gone in Florida, but the thought that it was even there is disgusting. When asked if he believes the media is withholding information that would exonerate him of any wrongdoing, Dershowitz said, "It's a question of fact." All right, so basically he's calling everyone in the media liars, and if anyone was to say that about him, well, you know he would sue them. Oh, I'm going to sue you. I'm suing the fake lawyer on TV. I'll sue your uncle. I'll sue your goldfish. That's it. I'm suing everybody. Meanwhile, the man never even bothers to address the truth. He said Roberts tried to deep six a series of emails with another reporter who said, "We know Dershowitz didn't do anything wrong. There's no proof he did anything wrong, but you should put him in your book because he's famous. He did Reversal of Fortune about the Klaus von Bülow trial. It'll help with your book pitch." I mean, these are some serious ass claims. And if you don't know Virginia, then, you just hear Dershowitz's side of the story on a lot of these different platforms, and you're like, oh man, this lady must be crazy. But if you know the facts of the story, and you know how credible Virginia has been from the very beginning, then you understand that this man is just flailing about like a drowning person with no life preserver, lashing out every which way, looking to grab onto anything, and if he does grab onto it, he's looking to bring it down with him to drown as well. Because at this point, Dershowitz has a lot of explaining to do. Miami Herald reporter Julie Brown, who has done extensive reporting on the Epstein case, told Beat the Press in an email that Dershowitz is in a panic because he has been named as someone Roberts was forced to have sex with. And I agree with Julie there. Zero doubt about that. This dude is in panic mode. I've been saying it for a while now. When he started with his unhinged tweets, I said it then, and I'll continue to say it now. This dude is freaking out. He understands the stakes, and he knows that his narrative is only going to be able to carry the day for so long. Brown wrote, "Mr. Dershowitz has never shown me or my editors any proof at all. There are no details we have left out because nearly all the conversations we've had with him, he has demanded that they be off the record." And this is another game he plays, right? Oh, it's the media's fault. The media is hiding things. Nobody wants to be truthful. And meanwhile, behind the scenes, it's him who's playing games. It's him who's trying to put pressure on officials. It's just a gross abuse of power. When asked about Brown's email, Dershowitz said, "Totally false. I have a recording." Dershowitz said Brown allowed him to record an in-person conversation with her and that he gave her all the needed material then. He also claims he gave all the exonerating material to Netflix, which did not include it in its filthy rich documentary. Look, this guy has a ton of followers on Twitter. He has access to Fox News. He has access to just about every other news source. So if you have the goods and you have these tapes and you're going to prove that Julie Brown's lying and everybody's a liar and there's a big conspiracy to wrap you up with Jeffrey Epstein, well then produce the evidence. What are you waiting for? My opinion, you don't have any evidence. To bolster his point, Dershowitz said the U.S. government has not used Roberts as a witness or named her as a survivor in prosecuting Epstein. He just shot himself in the foot. How about the perjury charges from Ghislaine Maxwell's deposition, you big dipstick, you moron, you absolute jackoff? This guy is unhinged, folks. He's not even thinking correctly. He is not even able to formulate a proper defense of himself at this point. He is just throwing a bunch of spaghetti at the wall, hoping a piece of it sticks. Dershowitz said the media is afraid of victim shaming, which is why they won't print the truth about what he describes as Robert's lies. And he accused the Miami Herald's Brown of being an advocate for survivors and working for the other side. I didn't know that there were sides to this. Dirty Dersh, Mr. I kept my underpants on. The only sides to this are right and wrong, good and evil at this point. And you, my friend, most certainly are not on the right side of history when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein, his conduct, and what you are being directly accused of. Epstein's one-time girlfriend, co-conspirator, all-around scumbag, Ghislaine Maxwell was arrested last month in New Hampshire and faces charges of helping procure young girls for him. There is a picture of Maxwell with Roberts and Britain's Prince Andrew, his arms around her. And obviously they're not going to go into too much detail about that, but we all know the picture they're talking about there. That's the picture that Virginia took at the Belgravia home of Ghislaine Maxwell in England directly before she was forced to sleep with Prince Andrew. When asked about the rumor that Maxwell might have videotapes of sexual encounters at Epstein's various estates, Dershowitz said, "I hope so, because that," he says, "would clear him." No, it would. Just because you're not on tape, that clears you? I don't understand his logic. And to be honest with you, I really think that he is probably the most shook up he's ever been in his life. This is the most he's ever had to play defense. This is the most his narrative has fallen flat. And when you take that away from these people, you take away their ability to manipulate the narrative, you take away their ability to bully their way into a positive position in a situation, and they're left looking frazzled, shook, and out of control. And that, my friends, is exactly the picture that is painted of Alan, I kept my underpants on, Dershowitz, as this story blooms. If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. A link to this article is in the description box, and on the link you can see the actual conversation that Dershowitz had with this news station. All right, everybody, I will be back tomorrow, and we'll rock and roll all over again. Have a good night, everyone.